This is James Tiwari from ProSoft Group. Please welcome for our first webinar of 2015, Web Methods Upgrade and ESB Modernization. We'll give it another minute. I see people are joining in, and we'll start the webinar exactly at 11. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our first webinar in the series for 2015, Enterprise Integration, Modernization, and Upgrade to Web Methods 9.x. This is James Tiwari from ProSoft Group, your host for next 30 minutes. Thank you so much for your time this morning. And I have Ram Kanumuri, today's presenter. And two of our integration architects, Ankit Malhotra and Sachin Mantri. Without actually much delay, let us go ahead with the webinar. To those of you who are not aware of ProSoft, I'll take 2 minutes to introduce who we are and our relationship with SoftwareAG. We are founded in 1995, headquartered in Donaldsonville, Illinois, and we're we have offices in US, Canada, and India. We have global presence, and we're 500 associates globally. And the areas of practice we cover enterprise integration solutions, B2B, business process management, analytics, cloud solutions, and managed services with an industry focus on retail, financial services, energy, utilities, and manufacturing. We are partners to technology giants, SAP, IBM, and SoftwareAG, and our focus includes business enterprise solutions, which covers most of the SAP stuff, and then business integration, and business analytics, and business support services, and where we deal with subject matter expert staffing and all. Ram, can you go over? These are some of our customers and our partnerships. When it comes to web methods, who we are partners to web methods even before it got acquired by SoftwareAG. We have the niche relationship with them over 15 years, and we are the largest tier 2 web methods consulting services provider. We provide SOA ESB reference architecture to global delivery models and different engagement models as per the customer needs. And we provide customer-specific web methods workshops, which are highly customized as per the customer needs and the environment. And these are some of our technology agnostic core integration service offerings. So a complete partnership, awareness to realization, SOA governance and center of excellence, upgrade and migration services, infrastructure design and installation services, 24/7 middleware, infra and application support services, global delivery and offshore development, and customer-specific on-site web methods workshops. Moving ahead, this is what we do with different technology practices when it comes to SoftwareAG, all including web methods and Terracotta from the in-memory point of view. We deal with Informatica, Layer 7, mediation point of view, infrastructure and operating systems, and IBM, SAP, and a lot of database service offerings. And if you see, ProSoft is a one-stop shop for the enterprise apps and the integration point of view. Without much delay, I'll hand it over to Ram Kanumuri, our presenter today, And I would request everybody to be unmute, and you can reserve your questions towards the end of the session. But feel free to type in your questions in the questions tab, and we'll address them towards the end of the session. Thank you so much. Ram, can you take over?
Thank you, James, and thanks Sachin and Ankit for joining as well. Thank you everybody for giving us this time today. We'll try to keep the webinar concise and short, and would like to give more time towards the question and answer session in the end. Today's agenda, I think based on what you have signed up, we are going to talk about modernization of enterprise integration platforms, and specific to the aspects of modernization that we can embark upon during an upgrade project and as such. But why we call it modernization is what we want to focus on. I know everybody has to go through an upgrade at some point, every 2.5 years or 3 years based on the release cycles. But why we call it modernization is what I want to talk about today. And in that aspect, I would like to talk about some infrastructure aspects of modernization, modernization in the aspect of adopting newer components and capabilities that come about from SoftwareAG's newer releases. And we will go into the specifics of the upgrade itself and how to best handle an upgrade and what kind of methodology has been proven and successful in the past. And in the end, we'll also talk about improvements that we can make towards the development lifecycle and the process itself within the enterprise integration, which would complete the modernization aspect. Now, coming to the infrastructure modernization point of view, we would like to definitely want to consider, and look at migrating from the existing platforms or moving into some suitable OS and hardware platforms. Those should be top of the priority list whenever we are looking for an upgrade of an existing environment. Typically, we would want to make sure the operating system and the hardware is, if it is coming to end of cycle or end of life cycle, definitely we want to acquire newer hardware. Even think about replatforming, maybe moving from Windows to Linux or vice versa. But the other areas of modernization is to think about a disaster recovery setup and a business continuity plan if we don't have one already in place. So those are definitely the most important areas of modernization that you would like to embark upon as part of the upgrade. What we also recommend is to look at the high availability aspects of your environment. If we don't have clustering enabled, if we don't have load balancing set up, if we don't have, those are the areas that definitely should be considered to be in part of a scope in this upgrade project. One other aspect that we have seen a lot of clients do is virtualization. If you're not already virtualized your hardware in environments, that's something that you should embark upon as part of your upgrade project. Also, if you have the option of moving your environment into cloud, like iPaaS, I'm not sure, not too many companies have embarked upon putting their integration domain in the cloud yet, but that's still an opportunity to think about some hybrid approaches that you would want to do. One other area of infrastructure modernization is definitely capacity planning. And we have seen integration environments grow exponentially year in and year out, and a continuous look at the current capacity needs is very important, and we have to look at the capacity needs in the aspects of messaging, synchronous transactions, asynchronous transactions, auditing needs, and things like that. But also put into considerations what are the newer projects that are coming up in the next year or two, and what kind of solutions we would be embarking upon, from our enterprise architecture strategy and guidelines. Also, what we would like to look at is have retractable frameworks and best practices in both the infrastructure provisioning and planning as well, that we would have best practices implemented so we can recover from a failure and things like that very quickly. So those are areas of improvement on infrastructure modernization. On modernization in the aspects of leveraging new components and capabilities is also very important. Every time we want to do an upgrade, we want to make sure if the existing landscape, is it providing for all the requirements that we need to deliver to our solutions. For example, maybe there's a new project that comes up and it needs to do FTPS or SFTP and a lot more complex encryption and decryption for maybe partner communication. Now, those are the kind of things that are capabilities and gaps that we have to identify within our environment. Are we doing the right solution design in the aspects of the requirements that come about is what we have to identify and look at our integration patterns, look at our extensibility, our supportability of our platform, and determine what kind of enhancements or rectifications that we need to do with the existing components that we have, as well as identify features and future growth indicators that will allow us to adopt newer components with a new architectural strategy. Typically, we might want to look at maybe we need to implement a new MFT for the newer requirements. So such trends should need to be analyzed and implemented. For example, cloud streams, especially for all your cloud integration, is a good example that you might want to consider upgrading to. If you already have a Salesforce.com adapter, maybe it's a good time to actually move towards cloud streams, so that way you would have one framework for all your SaaS integration needs. So those are the indicators that you have to look for in modernizing your platform. Few other areas, of course, we talked about standardizing all your cloud-based integration with uniform integration pattern from cloud streams, maybe migrating to universal messaging and leveraging the robustness of that messaging platform. Also evaluate and adopt other components like Command Central, Central Site. If you already have a well-established SOA landscape with a lot of services, maybe it's a good time to think about governance and start implementing Central Site. Not only in the aspects of defined time governance, but specifically to the runtime governance and mediation as well. Also, during this time is important to consider what kind of value-added solutions that you can build on top of your existing landscape. Typically, implementing BPM or implementing analytics, implementing monitoring. Those are the areas that will improve not only the extensibility and supportability, but mainly the visibility and manageability of your platform. That's what the value-added solutions will bring about. Also, another area of value-added services is to consider, the hybrid integration approach. I know SoftwareAG has come out with Integration Live, where integration is as a platform is available for you to leverage, cloud integration. So typically, if you have an on-premise integration and you want to integrate multiple SaaS applications in the cloud, that's when you will need a hybrid integration approach for your cloud. So that's a big new consideration that you can make as well as part of modernization of your integration environment. There are many new features and components introduced over the last few years. I think starting with 8.2 or 8.0, we have seen new components being introduced, new features being introduced, and new capabilities being introduced into these platforms. A few of those things, of course, are Apama Analytics, which is streaming analytics and real-time analytics platform that can sit on top of your messaging layer or any streams for that matter, even your IS interfaces as well. Apama Analytics is very similar in capability to the old BAM component, the Optimize, but architecturally it is a little different in a way that it handles streaming and real-time streaming analytics much better. Terracotta in memory, I think most of you are already aware. Terracotta is a must for any clustering to work in integration server nowadays. So, but not only using Terracotta for out-of-box clustering capabilities of your components, but also consider using Terracotta and big memory for building in-memory solutions. Maybe not just caching, but also building comprehensive in-memory solutions. Command Central is a new tool that's been introduced, since 9.0. It's very powerful and very useful tool, for administration and server provisioning purposes that can be leveraged. Also for monitoring and template-based installations. Cloud Streams is the next level or the next version of Salesforce.com adapter. In a sense that you don't need to have a Salesforce.com adapter, a separate Chronos adapter, or separate Workday, Payday adapter, but you can just have one Cloud Streams framework that will allow you to establish connectivity and integration into all your SaaS applications. Universal messaging, of course, is a big introduction. It is definitely, way above WebMethods broker and its capabilities, in a sense that you can have active-active clustering, you can have multi-channel support and transformational support in the sense that you can have mobile integration, IoT integration, and many more. On the features, we have seen improvements not only on the B2B side but also BPM, where we have ad hoc provisioning of BPM processes as well. But we have seen B2B asset caching as a new feature that's been introduced since 8.0. And mobile task inbox and mobile data synchronization are new features that have been improved and will be available with the newer versions. Of course, template-based installations through Command Central is a new feature that has to be utilized and leveraged, especially within the upgrade project itself. And when we have a scope of building multiple environments and multiple application servers, template-based installations actually help us hasten or speeden a lot of our activities during the upgrade. Now, coming to the upgrade methodology itself, ProSoft has made it an art. We execute dozens of upgrade projects every year. It's important to divide the scope of this upgrade project in the right way. We call it stand up, migrate, test, and cutover. Those are the key streams within the upgrade methodology, and I will talk about them in a while. So some of the points to consider is why should we upgrade? What are the basic releases, release basics of SoftwareAG? How are support and version availability lined up? What are the dates? what are the recommended paths from SoftwareAG. That's very important to go through. And a typical upgrade path, we will walk through a typical upgrade path of 9.6. We'll look at the upgrade strategy and the methodology and our own procedure on how we do it. But also we might even take a quick look at some of the success stories as well. Typically, when do we come to a point where we have to upgrade is, current version reaches end of support. That's the primary reason most of the time. But also there could be a reason, we want to leverage newer features for the upcoming project, and for example, SFTP, FTPS capabilities, even as a client, is available with 9.5 or 9.6 or 9.7, and you want to move to that so that because an upcoming project needs those features. Also, scheduled upgrade and maintenance. You want to stay in a supported fashion and in a maintenance available from this, SoftwareAG for any critical patches and service packs. So that's an important aspect for your stability of your environment. Of course, there will be always improvements in the newer versions, but most of the time we can't really hold on to that old version, even though when it's not supported, because even your supportability and compatibility of database and operating systems will also need to be updated. So that means, for example, if you are looking to stay in say 6.5 or maybe even 7.1.2, you would realize 7.1.2 is supported only in, for example, RHEL 4.1. And you can't run 7.2 on RHEL 6.5, right? So, but if you are stuck with the older version, you are stuck with the older operating system as well, or older database version as well, which both of them might have ended support, and you are running into a risk, not only from the SoftwareAG webMethods application point of view, but also from other database and operating system and hardware point of view as well. Same thing applies to JVM drivers and protocols as well. Those sometimes, even standards change over a period of time, and the older versions are not would not support them. Some of the release basics, typically we have a major version like 9.0, 9.5, and 8.0. We have minor versions 9.5. We have service packs like 9.6.1, and we have feature packs and fixes. There has been a change in the release strategy. You might have realized from some SoftwareAG. We see releases every 6 months now. So we've seen 9.5, we've seen 9.6, and now 9.7, and I think in a couple of months we will see 9.8. So every 6 months there will be a new release, a major version release. They're calling them major versions. But also you will see that the incremental change from one release to the other has also been minimized, so that the releases are more frequent. I think there are multiple reasons for the newer strategy. I think most of the time it has been requested by large customers and enterprise customers, so that incremental changes are smaller and have the ability to either stay back a couple of versions, and also have the ability to at some point achieve what we call continuous upgrade or a continuous upgrade version. I think from the SoftwareAG's support and versions availability, we have a beta version, then we have GA, and end of standard maintenance is when I think it's 2.5 years, or sometimes it's close to 3 years, depending on the component. End of standard maintenance will be 2.5 years past the GA. During standard maintenance, end of standard maintenance, you would not get any more fixes or service packs, but you're still supported with what you have implemented. End of standard support is complete end of the support, and you would not have any support at all, even for the existing implementations. Typical 9.6 upgrade path is always been side by side. whether you are upgrading from 8.0 to 9.6, even then it is a side-by-side. Even 9.5 to 9.7 is being recommended to be a side-by-side upgrade, unlike previously where we used to have, in some aspects, an overwrite upgrade. I think in some cases, say maybe we are moving from 9.5 to 9.6, we might attempt, to see if an overwrite upgrade is possible, especially in a smaller environments and smaller landscapes. But typically in a large environment, all upgrades are recommended to be side by side. For those who are not familiar with these terms, side by side is you install a new instance of the environment, and you migrate your solution or your custom code of integrations to the newer application. But in a overriding upgrade, you do not migrate anything. You don't migrate code. You actually over-install the newer version on the existing application. Typically, overriding upgrade is not implemented because of many factors, many risks in that approach. I think from the strategy point of view, we definitely want to make sure we do a thorough analysis of the environment. In the initial stages, we want to define our scope, of course, with all the considerations and modernization aspect of our environment. We want to consider what are all the changes that we want to apply to our hardware, changes that we would want to apply to our operating system and other components like database and JVM. Also determine any improvements on our physical and logical architecture. Physical mainly in the purposes of, are we going to re-implement our high availability? Are we going to federate the ESB? Maybe we have a single large 4-node environment right now. Maybe it is time for thinking about federating it into 2x2, 2 nodes each, maybe moving gateway functionality to one cluster, back-end processing and back-end interfacing to the another cluster. So that's kind of federation that you might want to look at if you want to re-engineer your physical and logical architecture. So those are definitely from the strategy point of view, we have to make considerations. On the methodology itself, as I said, first there are 4 prime areas of streams that you would want to adopt. Installation, stand-up, and configuration of various components is one stream, where they follow all the considerations made during hardware, platform, and high availability and physical logical architecture considerations. The installation team would do the base install, would stand up the platforms, tune those platforms, tune the components, whether it's IS, broker, MWS, tune them, performance test them, and configure them to the specs for that specific environment, whether it's test or dev or a production environment, and then release them to the next team, which is the migration and rectify team. The migration aspect of the project is moving the code from the old environment to the new environment, either transforming it, running them through utilities, running them through upgrade path and upgrade utilities that might be necessary, but also moving not only code but configuration as well, both configuration at the component level, maybe even configuration at the TN or partner configuration level. But also the third aspect of migration is data migration. Do we have persisted data like TN data or BPM data, process model and process instance data? Those are areas of data migration that you have to determine up front, and the migration team would have to lay out different paths for these components to be migrated. Typically, the migration activity is applied from the old production environment or the source code source safe of the old environment into the new dev environment. And that's probably the first time that the migration activity is conducted. As part of that, we mature that migration process and reapply the same steps in the higher environments, in the test environment and the QA environment and the production. The deployment aspect of the project will come into picture when we start moving the code in the new environment from dev to test, test to QA, and so on. Of course, regression testing is the other stream, the third stream of the upgrade project, and the most important aspect of the project. It is very important to determine upfront, what are the areas of regression testing that we will do. Of course, we don't want to test all 100% of our integrations, but we want to get to a right balance of testing on how we would do that. And in that sense, as I said, our own procedure, we start with a thorough analysis and planning phase where we define the scope, we plan for the upgrade path, and also determine the architecture, both physical and logical, on what we are going to do. On the approach itself, as I said, the path has to be, divided into 4 core areas, which is the stand-up, migrate, test, and cutover. So those have to be defined upfront. Identify milestones, very specific milestones, because a lot of times upgrade project is a very critical path if you already have other ongoing projects. Your upgrade project has to stick to its timelines and deliver upon, so that it does not impact other projects, ongoing projects, and timelines as well. So definitely, a thorough planning will allow you to get to an upgrade path that will be consistent and reliable. The last portion of any upgrade project is definitely the cutover and go live. Most of the time, there are only 2 ways. Whether you would do a staggered cutover, where it means you have your old environment running and you'll start your new environment up and running, and you would have it at some point during the transition. You would only migrate portions of your solutions or portion of your integrations into the new environment, test them, and release them. So that's a staggered cutover or staggered migration, where you would at some point have both environments running and catering to the production operations. In another approach, we might want to do a cutover in a big bang. That means we take all the code, migrate everything onto the new environment, switch off the old environment, switch on the new environment, and do the cutover and go live. Now that's a big bang. A lot of times it is, we can't really say one is good over the other. It's very specific to each environment, the size of the environment, the number of integrations that we have to deploy and test and verify during that cutover. But at the same time, a staggered cutover might not be possible, because there could be complications in running 2 environments at the same time, especially when we have consumers or partners that need to connect to, and so on. Not to forget about the last phase is the warranty and support of the upgrade path as well. Typically after the upgrade go live, you need to have at least a 2-week of warranty period, where we will run into issues, we will run into some hiccups, and being prepared to be able to mitigate such issues and hiccups after go live is the most important path for your upgrade success, project success. Also, as part of the upgrade project, definitely you want to look into all your training needs for your teams. Definitely one aspect of training that you would like to look at is the Delta training. If you are already on 8.2 or 7.1.2 and you're moving to 9.5 or 9.6, you need to train your teams at least with the Delta aspect of what's available in in the newer platform. How to do development in the newer platform. Sometimes you might not be exposed to the new development tool or the designer tool, and you've been used to doing development as the developer tool. You definitely need that Delta training. Also, Delta training for administrators. These components are new. The way we install and set up IS and broker, especially universal messaging and other clustering setup and Terracotta setup are completely new. So definitely it's not only a Delta training for your development team, but also you need a thorough Delta training for admin team as well. Last topic that I would want to cover today is the improvements or modernization on the process and SDLC itself. Definitely consider putting together an integrated source control mechanism where you can actually configure your integration server, the development environment server, to be tightly integrated into your source control server, like Subversion, like ClearCase. That will allow for less manual interventions. It'll also bring in build consistency as well. One other area is definitely look at utilizing deployer tool if you're not already using the deployer tool, but not only deployer tool for simple basic deployment of code, but also putting together a deployment process and approval process, maybe even versioning and consistency of that deployments through, maybe even putting together a propagation code strategy as well. Usually that's done through, approaching deployments or movement of code from dev to higher environments with a set process. Maybe you want to apply what we call repository-based deployments and using a set build environment and things like that. But also, being able to audit and be in compliance of SOX during that code change and code propagation is very important. One last thing that I would like to touch about is also establishing some reference architecture for future development so that it can bring about decreased time to market of integration solutions, but also implementing a test strategy that will automate using some test beds. Such automation will also allow you to implement regression testing and automate some of your regression testing for future upgrades as well. So this upgrade project can consider automating testing and implementing an automated test bed. Here are some of our success stories. As I said, we execute a multitude of upgrade projects every year. We are always on time, never delayed, never exceed the estimates that we provide up front. Also, we've done every kind of an upgrade. We've done upgrade from 7.1.2 to 9.5. We have done upgrade from 6.5 to 8.2. So these are real difficult scenarios because of the wide gap in the versions. But that's a success story that we can talk about as well. Here are some of our upcoming webinars, and I know you can request for a copy of this presentation from James, and we will be glad to provide you one. At this time, I would like to open up for question and answers. And
yeah. So we have.
Sachin, please go ahead. Read out the questions.
Yeah.
Address them immediately.
So we have a few questions, and I'm sure the complete group is going to get benefited out of it. So the first one is on the version 9.8. When is that expected in the market, version 9.8?
I heard from SoftwareAG, it is due in a month or two, but if you go to Empower, maybe there should be some release notes there. But I will get that answered probably you can keep a note of the person who asked the question, and we can send that information to them at a later date.
Okay, moving on to the next one. It's typically how frequently we see Microsoft SQL as a database being used, and what is our opinion about it?
Well, Microsoft SQL, I would say, if I count percentage-wise, maybe 20% is what we've seen being adopted. Of course, Oracle has the largest footprint. This basically, see, web methods and any integration platform for that matter, unlike an application platform or an application database, these are transactional databases. These are heavy-hitting transactional databases, and you might have realized, especially if you have a TN database and TN component or BPM and process instances and process data that we store into database. We also put in a very aggressive, typically in these middleware platforms, we put in a very aggressive archive strategy. We archive every few weeks or every few months. But a lot of times we've seen that we bring in a lot of transactional support that is needed. SQL Server has been supported well nowadays. It's improved over the time, and it is robust enough for the platforms right now. But from adoption point of view, I've seen. I can say it is still only second to Oracle in performance and capability.
Thank you. The next question we have is on the licensing. And I'm sure many will have the similar question. Universal messaging, is it part of the WM broker license?
I'm sorry, Sachin, can you repeat that question?
Yeah. So the question is the universal messaging part of WM broker license?
No, it is not. So universal messaging is a completely new component, a new messaging platform. I think it is definitely a separate license. Only thing is you have to talk to your sales representative from SoftwareAG on what are the options that you would have to migrate to universal messaging. So SoftwareAG is definitely recommending all customers to move to universal messaging and move away from webMethods broker, but that does not mean webMethods broker is going to be deprecated. They have not announced a deprecation path for webMethods broker, but for all purposes, I can suggest that at some point webMethods broker will be abandoned. We have already seen webMethods broker is not being improved upon or added any new features or capabilities on it for the last 3-4 years already. But also the universal messaging is definitely a superior product when it comes to high availability, active clustering, multi-channel transformation capabilities. Like you can put one publishable document into universal messaging and subscribe it in different channels, mobile, MQTT, and so on. But also it is also high performing. From Thoroughput point of view, there are claims that it is 10 times faster than broker, but we have seen personally in ProSoft labs that it's at least 4 times faster. So that way, yeah, definitely you will leverage a lot of capabilities with that platform. From the licensing point of view, I've seen customers get as-is license update. So that means for same capabilities as webMethods broker, like the active passive clustering, you might be able to replace webMethods broker with universal messaging in an active passive setup. Also, you will have the same features or capabilities that you have in the webMethods broker made available or enabled in the universal messaging that you would get as is upgrade. But sometimes you might be required to
buy additional components or additional CPU before you get that as is upgrade. So this is again, you have to approach your SoftwareAG sales representative to talk about those details.
Right. Thanks, Ram. Ram, probably we'll take one more last question, which is basically on the version control. The question is, there has been challenges seen on the version controlling within web method in the past. What can be expected with the newer version?
So version control, definitely from the source control. If you were talking about version control of your development time components, like whether you want to version control a particular web service, version control a particular publishable document type, those are things that can be controlled through plugging in an integrated source control mechanism. So I think with starting with 8.2 and it's been matured into 9.0, your integration server can now be tightly integrated into a version control system. So an external version control system like Subversion, like ClearCase, and other source control platforms and repositories. What it allows is instead of developers at the end of the day, archiving their packages and then manually checking them into a specific source control and versioning your code there, you can actually check in and check out from the designer tool or developer tool itself. So that means, I think most of you are familiar in your designer tool or developer tool, where when you have to edit a particular service, you have to lock it or unlock it and things like that. Once you set up your integrated source control, your lock unlock will actually become check in, check out. So that in itself will give you the ability to leverage the third-party source control systems, but the versioning itself is your own choice on how you adopt versioning, whether you do versioning and tagging and because you don't really version. Sometimes we've seen we don't really version at the service level, we version at the package level. But now we're talking about integrated source control, so now you can start versioning at the service levels as well. The other area of version control, I think, is more important than the design time or development time is actually the deployment time. So using deployer, creating builds, projects and builds that you will eventually use to propagate your code to the higher environments. Actually, versioning of the project builds is much more useful than your typical versioning at the development time. So that's again can be achieved by setting up your deployer, setting up your targets and target systems and target servers within that deployer, establishing your deployment process, establishing users and rules that are allowed to do specific operations with the deployer. And the next level of that same feature of using deployer is actually implementing what we call ABE, Asset Build Environment. That is another component from SoftwareAG infrastructure framework that you can install and set up, which will allow you to do what we call source control of deployment time components, so source control of the projects. But that is one area that we've seen when especially we have multiple projects and large teams and multiple builds going into production environment. The source control and versioning at the deployment time and project builds is very useful.
Ram, that's it from the questions perspective. Probably I'll hand it over to James.
Thanks, Sachin. Thanks, Ram. Any more questions, please? I'll be sending out the thanks note. You can place all your questions there and we'll address them as soon as possible. And thank you so much for your time, and we will see you in our next webinar.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.